doesn't like the fact. Well, Mac Catalina. Oh,
hey, why don't we say
welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing live show number 223.
Wait, have we dropped the digital? Are we not digital anymore? We're not digital anymore?
No, we dropped the digital. We're following. Well, actually, HSMI is following our lead. We dropped digital.
They're such a trendsetter, man. They are such a trendsetter.
Months ago, I dropped digital, and HSMI followed us. So they were with us. Is Mrs. Lily Mockerman from, and I have to keep going back and looking at your signature line because the C never sticks with me. But Total Customized Revenue Management. For some reason, the C doesn't stick with me.
Not to worry.
Yep, Stuart Butler with the wonderful Adrian Award-winning podcast.
How is everybody?
From Tim Peter and Associates. Oh, we lost Lily already.
And Ed, what happened to your head, man? You did something different to your hair. It's like you look like a real boy now.
It's just because he doesn't have a great big Iron Man behind him. That's
Listen, that's
it.
That's it. But I can channel my Tim Peter here. Hold on.
I'm dying to see where this is going.
Oh, yeah, this is not going to go well.
You're not the only one with a guitar.
Oh, nice. Little Squire Telecaster right there.
Yeah.
Signed by?
This is Counting Crows.
Nice.
This one.
Wow.
Well, let's see. This is the blue one.
Ooh, I like that.
And then over there is the blonde one, and the black one, and the sunburst one. And
seeing as we're sharing, I don't have a guitar, but I do have a Mandalorian helmet.
Mandalorian helmet, and yeah. Hey, just for the record,
I don't think Tammy would appreciate you referring to her as the blonde one.
Stuart,
Tammy is referred to as the only one.
Yeah, there you go. Good recovery.
Gotta save.
Not my first rodeo.
Yeah,
well
Mr.
done,
Stewart, on your recommendation, I grabbed Disney Plus, watched The Mandalorian 6 times, and then went back into the New Hope and had to watch it 3 times just to catch your favorite word.
By the way, I want to be very clear. I apologize for jumping in on this for 1 second, Lauren, because this is really the Stuart and Ed and you conversation first and foremost. However, there is no such movie called A New Hope.
Get out.
There is Star Wars, and then there are many sequels and prequels.
Get out.
Okay, well.
But there is no such movie called A New Hope.
So you can't ever change things after its initial release? Is that what you're saying?
Never.
When you are a 9-year-old boy and you see that
Lily,
Imperial
when you
Star
were a
Destroyer
9-year-old boy, how did you
come over
feel?
from the top?
Well, when I was a 9-year-old.
In a movie called Star Wars. And
it's still
in
Star
your
Wars.
brain as Star Wars forever.
Star Wars saga. They're episodic. It's okay.
It's episodic, yes, it's very true.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, back to the world of hospitality. Mr.
Starting off
Robert
the rails.
Hey, Darlene's with us. Hello, Darlene. How are you today? Good to see you. If you want to join, we still have an empty chair. I think if you want to, just raise your hand for it. We can say hi. And if not, that's okay too. You can hang in the chat for us.
By the way, can I say, as we talk about the stories, I'm very excited about our top story today.
By Expedia, knocking down the list?
I don't know if it's the Expedia.
That was today's top story.
Oh, wait. No, I'm really excited about the Skyscanner story.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, we'll be excited about Skyscanner. Do you want to hit the Skyscanner story? Since Robert's not here to mitigate his...
We can do whatever we want.
We can do anything we want.
Yeah.
There are no rules.
That's the only rule.
There are no rules. But, and to be the courteous genre that we are, Lily, you are the woman of our conversation today, so we will allow you to pick from the hat of knowledge and decide what it is that we would like to talk about first.
Oh gosh, well, I was looking at all of the articles, and I feel like this has turned into a revenue management, e-commerce, and distribution show this week. There's so many good topics here.
It is a marketing show. Shouldn't those things be in a marketing show?
Theoretically, yes.
Bravo.
I mean, we've got to talk about the working together, right? Yes. And I have to apologize. I did a Windows update that appears to be slowing down my entire computer, so I have some sort of weird lag going on.
Who would have
Yeah,
ever
I
thought
had to
of
grab a Windows box today because I got told by Restream that the reason why my LinkedIn feed is getting interrupted and getting shut off is because the wonderful OS update Catalina is creating called 9 millisecond intermittence transmissions, and that the Windows I have to use the OBS software, which will allow for the 1 millisecond transmission interruptions, which will be a tolerance that they can accept. So I went to go over and open up an old Windows box, and to my surprise, 3 hours later, it's still freaking updating.
Shocker.
So anyway, right now we're only simulcasting on Facebook and YouTube and Periscope. We're not into LinkedIn at this moment. As soon as it gets loaded up, we'll be there. But that's me. Anyways.
But yes, I agree with Tim. I think that the Skyscanner move is very interesting. I think very much like Google and some of these other moves that we're seeing recently. There's always some conjecture around whether or not they're going to stay in the we're not a booking engine category, or if this is just a secret entrance into becoming a booking engine or an OTA. So I did think that was interesting, the way that they're kind of repositioning themselves.
All right, I'm going to be a bastard beyond my norm today. But I'm taking a victory lap on this one. So the story, of course, for those who know that Skyscanner is pivoting from its original model and becoming a marketplace with bookings. Lauren, what have I said about metasearch for, I don't know, years and years and years and years on this show?
It's not a destination.
It's not a destination. It's what you want.
Not a destination.
You can't
Everyone now together.
I have said
it will be the only type of booking ever that there will be no more OTAs, no more corporate stuff.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and actually say that I think this pivot is because Triptease got into Meta.
They're distancing themselves? Is that the...
Well, I think it was the double whammy of Sojourn and Triptease getting into Meta as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not the only one who's been saying this, but I wrote a blog post in 2014. I went and looked, that was called The Meta Search Myth, and it's all about the fact that Meta Search is not a company, it is not a product, it's a feature.
Yeah.
And here you go. So I'm taking my victory lap today because
turn around, let's all pat him on the back.
That's all I need. That's all I need is glory and adulation, and then we can move on.
Tim, you were correct. How about that?
Well, to be entirely fair, the one thing about being a skeptic is you only have to write once.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And let's be honest, Trivago's still doing okay, right? They're still existing as just a Meta.
I wouldn't say they're doing okay
For now.
Right?
They seem to be a headwind on Expedia's profitability.
And
they just changed leadership. So that's good.
Yeah, it seems like
in the immortal
healthy
words of the Broadway musical Avenue Q, everything in life is only for now.
Yeah, and actually, speaking of Expedia, that was another one that definitely did catch my eye, because this move with resort fees, Booking.com had announced their change with resort fees where they're going to be assessing commission. And so Expedia is not going to assess commission, but they are going to maybe dock your placement, which, to be honest, I think is going to freak out a lot more hoteliers than the commission move. And so it'll be very interesting. Historically, we've seen a lot of really irrational moves by hoteliers when things like this happen with placement, where they will just go crazy and take advantage of whatever's going on. So I'm really curious to see what sort of moves hoteliers make around this new placement thing with the resort fee. And is it going to be like dropping rates in a recession, where all of a sudden we see resort fees dropping off? Who could be the first to drop the resort fee so that they can be at the top of the placement? Or will they, hold on to their resort fees? It's really going to be interesting in some of those heavily resort fee type destinations. I mean, even the ones that are using a city or facility fee, like San Francisco,
like Omaha or suburban,
right?
I don't know, wherever.
Yeah, Arkansas was top of mind for me. But no, Miami Beach, San Francisco, New York City, all the ones that are tacking on these fees, because we talked a couple weeks ago about this is the fastest growing revenue area for hotels.
Well,
by 11%.
Time out.
Right.
Stop. No, it is not new revenue. This is
it's just moved.
Yeah. It's a mandatory fee. It doesn't matter. It is, and the hospitality industry is doing itself a pretty stupid strategic service when they say we're making $3 billion. Oh, really? So that's the damage that drip pricing is applying to consumers. Thank you for quantifying it for us.
Yep.
I mean, and that's
Robert,
it. And,
Robert, you have to take your victory lap. Share your point of view. Because Lily may not have been here for this one before, so share your point of view on resort fees.
Well, okay, number one, we should stop calling them resort fees. We should just call them drip pricing, because that is the fundamental issue. And all of this, frankly, bullshit about, they're good for this, and we're giving you a bottle of water, and we're giving you... It doesn't matter. It's a mandatory fee. You can give them whatever you want. You can charge separately, a la carte for Wi-Fi. You can charge for the health club. You can do anything, but you've decided to make it a mandatory fee. So that's the same as the room rate. So my perspective is, why not just make it a $1 room rate and charge $237? It has no effect.
So, I will say though, that room rates were up by about 1 or 2% when you take out that ancillary fee.
Right.
So theoretically, when you combine them, we're up 12 or 13%. But those people who want to move away from the 11% increase in resort fee will have to add it back to the room rate. And whether or not we like it, all of the OTAs are currently positioning based on the room rate, not room rate plus resort fee, although I think booking is changing.
One other thing is the brands are complicit in this because they changed their agreements to suddenly account for their revenue and their fees based on those fees as well. So, when they come out and say, we're upset because, Booking.com's going to do this, it's like, were you upset when Marriott and Hilton did that? I don't know.
All right, so can I play devil's advocate on this one? I'll be the opposite because I think these additional fees, resort fees, in and of themselves, aren't necessarily a bad thing. I think
the way
they're being
pricing.
Can I finish my point?
No,
Robert,
you can't. I'm going to go.
Robert, hold on. Let's start.
All right.
Let's let him dig his own grave.
I think the way in which they've been implemented by a lot of folks is terrible, right? If they're implemented like a drip pricing where you're bait and switching people or adding on at the end, I think that's a terrible practice and is illegal in most cases and should be prevented. But if you're transparent up front and you provide value and you're clear and give clarity on what that value is, then there's a huge advantage to a lot of sections of this industry. And I work, and as you guys know, a lot with condotels. And one of the things that helps with condotels is differentiating between the room rate and this fee. It allows them to change how they distribute that revenue to the ownership or not. Like a lot of folks, if they're a condotel, then they have to give 60% of the room revenue to the owners, right? So they're only operating on a 40% of the room revenue. But now these resort fees give them more flexibility to reinvest in amenities, to reinvest in the product, to improve the guest experience. So I don't think resort fees by nature are evil. I just think people have taken advantage of the opportunity that they present. Just like any tool can be used as a weapon or as something to solve a problem. There's a lot of people doing this the right way, and they're going to get penalized because of the bad actors in this situation.
That's a shelter. That's shelter to an intended fee structure, right?
Sure.
Yeah, and
which is exactly okay. What was the intent of these fees? One was as a shelter to commissions, B, to management fees and franchise fees, and C, to sort order. Right? I mean, those were all the purposes.
Some of my clients started out with resort fees as an investment back into the property. Like they took a $5 fee so that they could improve the facilities.
The on-site manager at the condotel owns the amenities.
Right.
And it's the amenities are not funded by the association.
Right.
So that needs to get paid for, and that needs to get paid for without a cut of it going to the owner of the unit.
Okay.
So, that, and this is where I'm going to agree with Stuart that, the version of resort fee that everyone has in their head is the worst version of it, which is a hotel.
The most common.
Right. A
is
hotel that is not definable as a resort in the first place.
Right.
That is providing what should be free amenities because it's part of the room rate and tagging it with a fee so they can lower their room rate to look more attractive, drip pricing. Condotel is a different animal, and this is why, and it's a big animal. Condotel is a really big and growing form of hospitality, and it also tends to be a form, right? They're actually resorts, and when you want to go to a massive complex where you're getting a 2-3 bedroom apartment with a full kitchen. Oh, but also there's an entire water park and a mini golf course and, real restaurant facilities, things like that. You can't have those things existing without charging for them. So sure, you could break it out and say water park admission, use of the pool is extra, but then you're nickel and diming on that side of it versus just calling it to get the resort amenities, which only can be booked through the on-site property manager. So someone selling on Airbnb, their unit, those people can't actually use the amenities. So it is a strategic and meaningful use of resort fee in the condotel model. But I agree that everyone who's not condotel, yeah, no, it's
we're talking about two different things though. One is
hold on, just
is it a mandatory? Is it a mandatory?
Stop. Carl's telling you're scaring Lily. You're scaring Lily. All right?
That's good.
Oh no! I'm just listening.
Lily.
Okay.
No.
Lily,
Number one, though.
One thing to be aware: we all want hotels to make more money. Like,
yes,
right.
We're all in the business of making hotels make more money
in a consumer-friendly way.
And that's, by the way, Ed, that's really the key point from my perspective on this. Is everything you just said is true. Everything you just said is true about condotels, no doubt about it. The problem with the way, so first off, when we talk about resort fees, and we're talking about the ones where it's done in the worst way, let's be fair, that's probably 90% of the market when we talk about resort fees, right? So the vast majority of resort fees are done in a very opaque, very consumer-unfriendly way, and you're not getting a lot of value. It's just free money to the properties, right? I mean, now I want them to make more money, but you have to provide value in exchange for that money. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
the second thing, and my second and final point on this is the deal with the condotels. I agree with everything you said. And also it's true that we're exposing the inner workings of the business to the customer, and the customer shouldn't have to give a crap. The everything you said is true, but there has to be a better way to put that together in a way that it's more. It's not such a limitation to the guest to understand. Well, wait, I'm going to this place and it's a building and there's a pool outside and I have to pay extra for the pool. I agree, don't nickel and dime them, but there's got to be some better mechanism.
Well, the challenge, this is actually interesting.
To the guest,
so Stuart and I spend a lot of time in the condo world, condo hotel world with an association called OPMA, which is the On-Site Property Managers Association. And one of the challenges that I would say 99% of these properties have is when the developer created the association to sell the units, they did not at all think about the remaining business unit of the on-site property management. And because of that, there is a lot of challenges on usage rights of the name of the property. There's challenges around access, who gets access to the resort amenities, how is access handled, what's measured as far as overuse or abuse. Airbnb didn't exist when most of these things were built. So there wasn't a huge do-it-yourself VRBO market. Because even prior to Airbnb, most VRBO was offsite property managers marketing themselves. And because of all of this, there are more offsite property management companies popping up that are fly-by-night operations that are actually stealing units from the on-site property manager and are not being completely ethical in the way they market it. And that's actually causing huge complexities of problems with TripAdvisor, with social media, because everyone sees it as, I went to Reunion Resort. Well, you went to Joe's apartment at Reunion Resort through an unsanctioned way of getting there. And so you weren't serviced by the hospitality staff that were servicing Reunion Resort. You shouldn't have gone to the pool because you didn't have rights to do that.
And I think that really brings up my point on the topic too, is that we've got this idea that like, okay, well, to provide value, we'll say you can't use the amenities unless you pay this additional fee. But how do you actually enforce that? I mean, you've got a big resort like out here, the Westin Kierland has
a lot of them have mechanisms for that. A lot of them will do wristbands or swipe cards with locks of gates and things like that. So I think logistically they've got that figured out.
But at what point did the logistical costs and the labor involved in managing it logistically offset any additional revenue that you're actually getting?
But those are all valid points, but they have nothing to do with resort fees and drip pricing.
But they do.
What is the minimum? No. Let me. What is the price the consumer has to pay? What is the minimum price that they have to pay to stay at that property? That's the question. In the rest of the world, on every other form of product sold to consumers.
The consumer, to the business operator, there's a lot more complexity. And my fear is if we tarnish all resort fees with the same brush and go at it with a hatchet and say, let's just ban them, there's a large section of our industry, the condo hotel market, even though it's the minority that are not the bad actors, that are going to be really, really seriously impacted by that.
I find myself agreeing with Robert here. I have to agree with Robert.
The topic is not banning resort fees. The topic is drip pricing.
Right.
Flat out. And you say it's a mandatory fee, you have to include it. Bottom line, you're done.
If you go to Expedia and you search, you're seeing the room rate only. They don't include the resort fee as the total price. And so to Robert's point, you do all this comparison shopping, you think, and then you get to it and you find out that there's actually this massive difference between the top three that are supposedly the same rate, because one has a $30 resort fee, one has a $20 facility fee, and one doesn't have a fee at all. And so you may have
but that's Expedia. Expedia has chosen to handle fees. Yes. Hold up. Expedia has chosen how they want to show fees. And
it gives them a competitive advantage to do it that way.
No,
now they're beginning to realize the reason they're dimming people isn't because they don't want resorts. They make less money when people jump from Expedia and go see a rate, and then there's a tacked on fee. It's a math. That's when it makes math sense.
It's a behavioral issue because resort fees, drip pricing works. And the problem is that drip pricing works because if one group does it, they have an advantage because they are artificially presenting a lower.
Well, let's change the narrative then. Let's target drip pricing and not resort fees.
Oh no, exactly. That's what the issue is.
Which is just the difference in how it's resort fees are evil. That's not the case. Resort fees aren't inherently bad.
Hold on. That's the process. That's what they're called by the industry. So.
But if we reframe the whole problem, right, we're always trying to say, how can we regain share from Airbnb? Have you seen the fees that Airbnb tax on at the end of the day?
Absolutely.
It's the same problem, actually, if you're trying to compare to Airbnbs and you have the same price, except theirs are wildly different, whereas in the hotel industry, resort fees or drip pricing or whatever you want to call it, is typically a difference of, $10 to $20 from property to property. You can look at a 3-night stay in an Airbnb and have the difference from what you thought you were going to pay on the first page be off by $500 or more, once you compare the final fees, and there is no way on Airbnb to make that comparison. So why don't we take this as an opportunity for the hotel industry to be transparent and use that as a lever against things like Airbnb? But on the other hand, then what's the real point of the fee? Because frankly, I have to disagree. All this like sheltering things for facility fees and stuff like that, in my mind, that has nothing to do with it, because you could have just taken that out of the room right at the beginning of the day.
Yeah.
So I think that what it really is them trying to compete in the sort order of ascending and descending pricing, because we're showing it as the room rate. Now, Booking.com, the rumor, I don't have a news article yet to back this up. Maybe it's out there, but the rumor is that Booking.com is going to start displaying their pricing inclusive of taxes, which I'm sure is their way of including fees, which also brings up a lot of questions around parity, because then is Booking.com going to say, okay, this price is displaying higher than Expedia's price, who's not including taxes and resort fees? And it's hard to say what's going to happen with that move.
And that's why drip pricing has been outlawed everywhere, because those who don't provide the total price, which is the minimum price that must be paid by the consumer, have an advantage, and it forces all the others to do it. Case in point, MGM had big resort fees, Caesars for a few years, didn't do it. They're going, no, we aren't nickel and diming and stopping. It's a bad price. They had to cave. They were uncompetitive, and they ran the analyses and went, we are losing business because of it. And they go, well, yeah, people don't like it, and you're bringing in the pricing later. And they're going, right, but we have to get the person further down the funnel, because they're going with the property that looks like it's $30 less per night when it's really $10 more.
Well, I've said my piece, so I'll yield the floor to Stephanie if there's a way for you to do that. I see she has a comment on this. Lauren, I don't know if you can.
Yeah, what happens with a raised hand?
Jump in.
If you click it, what happens?
What I'm sorry,
we can't.
No, I want to. What I'm going to do is I'm going to
tried.
go out. You guys add her in, okay? So I'm going to step out, and I'm going to go over, and you guys add her in, okay? I'll be back in as a moderator. So bye-bye.
All right.
All right. So I'll click.
Okay. I just clicked.
Oh, her request just went away.
No request pending. She gave up.
Someone got it.
I clicked it. I don't know. Yeah.
So I
like how we don't communicate and everyone just tries to accept it.
I have a question for Stuart and Ed, by the way. Yep. I've not done work with condotels. I understand the business. I'm certainly familiar with it. We've talked about it here on the show a lot, a bit. So I understand the business to some degree. Here's a question that I don't understand. Mm-hmm. Most guests who are going to go to a condotel are hey, Stephanie, how are you?
Hey.
Welcome.
Good, Tim.
So most people who are going to go to a condotel want to use the pool. Most people who are going to go to a condotel are going to want to use the various amenities, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Why is the assumption that the fee isn't just built into the rate? And what prevents distributing the rate in a way that just looks like a hotel rate, and you're just charging more for it? You know what I mean? Because I think there are two different factors here. There is what you have to do from a business perspective to make sure the right people get paid, and there is a how do you do this in a guest-friendly way that says this is what it's going to cost you to take advantage of the property.
Right. It's because of the way the contracts are written between the homeowners and the management company. So it defines what percentage of the rate, the room rate, goes to each party. So if you roll that into a flat fee, then homeowner also
they get a cut that they're not entitled to.
Right, and so Stuart's frozen because the Airbnb spies are freezing his signal.
That's right.
So here's one of the challenges is none of this was thought through by the real estate developers. And if any of you have ever run an association of owners, to get a majority vote on anything, which is what it takes a 3/4 majority vote in a lot of these cases to change any of the core covenants of the association. So to be in the on-site property manager's rental pool, they all have a standard of furnishing and things like that. So, first of all, buyer beware. If you're a traveler and you're booking Joe Schmo's unit on Airbnb, if Joe Schmo's self-renting his unit inside a condotel, chances are Joe Schmo was kicked out of the association's rental pool for not meeting the standards of the rental pool.
Right.
So you're probably going to get 40-year-old furniture, and you'll have no one to complain to because you rented it from Joe Schmo, not through the on-site property manager. And so there's a lot of broken, bad core that's almost undoable. And some of these, I mean, do you guys, back years ago, there was the developer who built Hammock Beach and Reunion here in Florida. It was a developer named Ginn that built these massive condotel resorts, had like Sheryl Crow in every weekend doing concerts and things like that. Well, they were for sale.
Yeah.
And then as soon as that was done, they stopped subsidizing all the costs to make the resort that awesome and said to the association, you can keep doing this, but your per unit fee is going to be, $40,000 a year because, Sheryl Crow's not cheap. And and magically, Ginn then sold the shell of the on-site property management piece because, he made all the money. He made all the money on developing the land, selling the unit at way too much money. And now the on-site property managers left being screamed at by the association to keep renting and yet being undermined by anyone who gets kicked out of the association and are, illegally using the brand name. Because believe it or not, if you own a unit, you actually don't have rights to use the name. But they all are. So it's a messy, condotel is in a really messy place. And so the new ones being built have sharper attorneys on them that understand all of this. And so now the newer units are, being sold with association rules that understand and basically forbid you from selling the unit yourself or renting the unit yourself.
This is the same kind of problem. I mean, it's interesting, to broaden this to digital and things along those lines more broadly. This is the same thing that media companies went through 10 years ago with digital rights and streaming rights and things like that, where if you were an actor or you were a musician or you were whatever, and your contract called for what happened when somebody bought the CD, when somebody bought the DVD, when somebody rented the VHS cassette. Oh, but they want to stream it on Amazon, or they want to. Or these days you want to stream it on Spotify, which, to be fair, they worked all through this before Spotify existed, but the concept is the same. The contract simply didn't envision what kinds of distribution would exist. So that's what this problem is, and what you're saying makes a lot of sense. So in 10 years, this isn't going to be a problem because the new agreements will have taken care of this, but the old agreements that still exist.
The difference is you're talking about someone whose core livelihood required them to have to renegotiate their contract, whereas Joe Schmo, who owns a vacation rental unit.
No, completely understood. No, I get that. I get that.
It's the money at stake is much smaller. And it's a less sophisticated, less motivated party that you need to get to come to the table. So I don't know if you're going to see it ever be completely solved on everything that exists today is incredibly hard to change. Everything moving forward, I think you'll see a lot of this foresight built in, and then even kind of what could happen next as thoughtfulness. But again, back when a lot of these were built, it's a real estate developer who went, I can only justify X dollars a unit if I sell this as a place to live. If I sell this to UK travelers, I can get triple. And, I'm going to build this rental thing and make them think that, it's possible to get a $400 ADR in Orlando.
Right.
And that will justify selling this 1,200 square foot unit for $300,000, where you literally could go buy a house down the street for less than that.
It makes a ton of sense.
I have to jump in here on behalf of the other polite female who has joined the group, because I think she actually had something to say, and I would love to hear her thoughts. But she's being too polite.
Don't be polite.
Don't be polite. Don't be polite in this
successful
room, Stephanie. By all means.
Yes.
Your microphone may be off, though.
Your microphone is still off, Stephanie.
All right, happy Friday.
Howdy.
Happy Friday.
No, I'm ready to move on to the next topic when you guys are, but it's interesting topic so far.
Do you want to pick the next topic since you're the newest to the show today?
You guys put me in this situation last week and gave me a hard time for being efficient, so I didn't knock them out.
Oh no, we're not going to be efficient.
You have to realize none of the others have read any of the articles. They've only seen the headlines.
Untrue. Untrue.
Well,
Wait a second.
If we get bored, I have a topic I'd love to cover today. But
and several of them can't even read. But we won't detail that.
All right.
That's true. These are just
full
for show.
disclosure. I had Siri read them to me.
Okay.
You caught me.
Okay.
So, Stephanie, which topic did you want to discuss?
Well, as the resident brand expert, I wanted to look at the development pipeline that they put out.
Yeah.
There was this is something I kind of like to keep an eye on, but this one was a little bit better. Probably about 6 months ago, there was an article came out that showed about a 7% year-over-year increase in development pipeline, and this one's quoting closer to 8. But, as we look at the different brand profiles and, with Marriott taking over Starwood, I was kind of surprised to see which brands were still gaining traction within or had the most amount of traction in terms of development pipeline. I mean, there was still like a fair amount of Fairfield Inns that are being developed, which I'm kind of surprised because I feel like those already exist in most markets. There was a lot of extended stay that, whether it be Home2 or some of the Marriott extended stay, that seemed to, I think, see a trend in terms of just extended stay business. But I feel like part of that's just because they don't have enough. They already have all the other brands in the market, so you have to do the ones that you don't have. So, but I didn't see, and Robert, correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't see if this was just a U.S. Report or if it kind of broke down.
I think it's the U.S. Construction pipeline. I'm pretty sure. Okay. Yeah. Yep. So
I have to say, though, to me, just looking at the title of this article, it kind of came across like McDonald's and Burger King are selling more burgers than anything else on their menu. Like, I kind of expect the 3 major brands to have the most development in the pipeline, but still interesting some of the commentary within the article.
Yeah. And I think it's also something I try to remind us of when we talk about brands, when we're talking about the perception of the moves they make, is, always try to remember that the majority of Marriotts are select service or extended stay, not a full service Marriott. The majority of Hiltons are Hampton Inns or Homewood Suites or Home2 Suites. That's what's being built. That's what's growing. That's what makes up the majority of their room count and their unit count. And so, but yet they market themselves as feeling luxury, things like that, which I always find funny because I think it's a bit of multiple personality disorder in the marketing that Hilton and Marriott sometimes have, where they tend to, Hilton, I always look at their marketing and it matches their biggest boxes. It matches Hawaiian Village, it matches the Waldorfs, it matches the New York Hilton Midtown, but it does not at all really match a Hampton Inn. And I find that funny because Hampton Inn is probably, now that Hilton doesn't own those properties, Hampton Inn probably is the largest source of revenue for Hilton.
It's certainly what the strongest brand, especially as they start. If you look at the True and Home2 in terms of the development pipeline, they haven't gained consumer traction yet from the, in terms of just brand recognition for sure.
Well, and I thought that was interesting in the article. True has almost as many properties as Hampton Inn, and that's true. You have saturation, market saturation for Hampton, but they've got the same, they've got 300 projects and about the same number of rooms. And then the other one, which I was avid for, IHG with 182 properties. That's a pretty good size hockey stick for the IHG guys with that brand. And again, they've got enough Holiday Inn Expresses and Holiday Inns everywhere, but I don't think I think most consumers have never heard of Avid. Probably.
I'd be interested in understanding in this research of this pipeline, how many are real estate investment trusts?
Well, I think
versus hoteliers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the other thing that'll happen, just as the economy changes, this doesn't go into like at what point in this development process are there? Like a lot of these hotels probably don't have the financing yet, so how, if and when that project will come to fruition, is to be told, because I know that's the larger part of it. So you can have a franchise agreement and then not have your financing. So.
Yeah, I also will admit I'm gonna go to bat for my old friends at Wyndham for a second. I don't know why Wyndham never gets any play in this stuff. Like their investor relations people must have pissed off the street or pissed off whoever writes this stuff up. In their third quarter release. So I'm ex-Wyndham, Stephanie. I don't know if you know that, but I worked at Wyndham for a long time. They're the biggest hotel in the world by hotel count. They got 9,200 hotels. And their pipeline at the moment is 1,450 hotels and 190,000 rooms. So in property count, and it's exactly what Ed was talking about before, it's select service, right? I mean, these are economy and select service brands. But they actually have more hotels in the pipeline than anybody else. The thing is, the room count per hotel is a lot lower than what the average Marriott is or the average Hilton is. And I never understand why they don't get enough press about the fact that they are, by a measure, the biggest hotel company in the world.
But what percentage of that pipeline is actual new build versus conversion for the Wyndham brand? Because Wyndham, a lot of those brands.
Yeah, that's true. We're talking construction on this side, so that's
right.
A very fair point.
So
I'm going to go out on a limb and say 95% of it is conversion.
Wow.
Right? I'm probably joking.
Wingates were...
But a lot of it is... Yeah, but Wingates, don't forget, Wingates, our last number I knew was about 150 properties.
Yeah.
So out of 9,200, 150 is, let me do the math, not much.
Are they still that low? Really? I thought Wingate's a pretty solid brand. I don't know. I thought they had more.
It's interesting because, you're saying, like you said, Ed, that a lot of these major brands that we tend to think of as full service are in reality developing all mid-scale properties, upper mid-scale properties. But I have long thought that IHG is trying to position themselves as more of a luxury brand with their moves to take on Kimpton and their move to take on, I think it was Seven Seas they purchased as well. And so the article today about their digital kind of distribution was interesting to me because did you see who they hired to head it up? Someone from Mandarin Oriental.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. Yeah, but it wasn't a long-term Mandarin person, right?
Their attribute-based selling, which is the thing they're trying to work into every single release that they have.
Excuse me for a second while I go throw up.
Doesn't even apply to the majority of their hotel count.
Correct.
Because a Holiday Inn Express doesn't have many attributes to sell. A Holiday Inn.
Oh, if you'd like a coffee maker.
I gotta get in on this because that concerto, I was actually on the IHG Owners Association for a number of years that kind of helped with that. But just to give like a little bit of insight into that, it is attribute selling, but hopefully they'll get to a place where there's better inventory control as it relates to the, with the OTAs. There's so much more involved than just attribute selling, and just being able to either sell add-ons better in that selling process, and then just get away from a archaic DOS space reservation system.
By the way, my reaction is not about upselling, is not about having a better system. It's about people use the word attribute-based selling to cover a multitude of sins, and we tend to be putting carts in front of horses on some of this.
Oh yeah,
there's a lot. That's going to be you're exactly right, Stephanie. There's a lot of opportunity. I completely agree. There's a ton of opportunity to improve the upselling experience. There's a lot of opportunity to improve the ancillary revenue experience. So all of that is absolutely true.
And just in terms of integration of systems, previously your PMS, your reservation system, your meeting planner, your meetings system, your POS, all were basically run as siloed systems. So if you can create a better core and have better interactions and layering those systems so that from a revenue management standpoint, everything talks to each other a lot better, I feel like there's a much greater opportunity for more holistic revenue management, but and revenue generation across all platforms.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But here's the fallacy of how, and I'm not opposed, certainly not opposed to attribute-based selling as a concept. And in many cases, the industry does do it through room categories and room types and things like that, right, where they bundled these up. But I'll pick on Shiji, for example, because, again, these attribute-based selling is being predominantly pushed by three groups: Shiji, Amadeus, and Sabre, because they're trying to sell new reservation systems that do things, right? That is the underlying purpose of this. But Shiji, in the first article, I think that really kind of came out with this distributable, that's a mouthful, hotel attributes. Their examples were meeting spaces, 15 euros, rooftop bar, 25 euros, sea view, 20 euros, king size bed, 50 euros. Well, those already kind of happen. Tennis court, 15 euros, swimming pool, 50 euros, restaurant, 10 euros, golf course, 15 euros, parking, 10 euros. Okay, parking's kind of, and self check-in. You go, those are ridiculous examples, right? Aside from the existing sea view bed types, those sorts of things. Those are separate facilities to cross-sell, but not really part of
I think there's better examples to use than those, though. You could say, whether I think a huge opportunity for hotels is charging for early check-in and late checkout on things like that. Right now, we don't really have very good capabilities to do that automatically without having to manually integrate with the front desk. Right. But to your point about Amadeus, Amadeus, you look at what they did with the airline industry. Every airline uses the same reservation system, and it's how the Southwest and the American Airlines build on top of that. So there is an opportunity from a community model to basically get rid of the Marshes of the world to have that same. It's how you sell the systems on top of it. That is what Amadeus is trying to do for the hotels that they did for the airline industry. Right,
absolutely, and again, a major challenge with all of this is, again, it's like the resort fee. This isn't attribute-based selling. This is bundling, right, and packaging, because there are five.
Well, no, that's not necessarily true.
No, there are five types.
Hold on.
You got to hear my definition of packaging, though.
Yeah, I know, but
he doesn't want to.
But I'm going to disagree at the end anyway. I was just trying to cut to the chase.
Okay.
No, it's from when I think about early check-in and late check-out and things along those lines. One of the things that I have found to be true for years, and if somebody has a different experience on this, please say so. But the thing you have to do is sell the room first. When we talk about things like early check-in and late check-out, you want folks to know that it is available. And it makes a great upsell. It makes a great thing to sell after you got them to agree, this is the room I want, this is the property I want, this is the destination I want, and actually flip those around, right? Destination, property, room. But then all those other attributes become things that are upsell opportunities of, hey, will you pay us an extra this for this? Will you pay us an extra that for that? It tends to work better in terms of how the guest thinks about how they are looking for what matters to them during their stay. They want to know that those things are available. But also a lot of the things that people have been talking about as attributes, apart from the obvious, hey, give me a better view, give me a better room, give me a late check-in, late check-out, things like that. There's not as many levers to play with as I think we'd like to think there are sometimes,
Yeah, and I think the danger is that you can go the other way, right? I was listening to a podcast this week where Amadeus were talking about NDC, and they were talking about what they've done for the airline industry and how they want to do the same with attribution modeling in hotels. And one of the examples was brought up was, well, does everyone need an iron in their room? Does everyone need an ironing board? Does everyone need a coffee pot? that's where I think we're going to go down a slippery slope
Correct.
to reducing the experience of the guest, right? Because I'm not going to use the iron every time I'm in a hotel, but every time I want to use an iron in a hotel, I want it to be there. I don't want to have the hassle of choosing whether it's there or not. So I think as long as it's used appropriately as attributions that are adding to the experience, not looking at a way to strip away from the current experience to monetize what they're already getting, like the airline industry is, I think we're okay. But I'm not very confident the industry as a whole is going to treat this the way, in that spirit.
I don't think hotels go down that route.
Tim,
no.
Just because I want to make sure that you don't get away with like thinking you're right, I'm going to tell you how you're wrong.
And then I will too.
So, in major international destinations that tend to have the flights drop you early in the morning. A lot of those consumers would enjoy early check-in or late checkout. To know that they have it locked down early, they actually may pay
one of those guys a lot of
premium.
times. I absolutely agree with that.
So, so I wanted to disagree with you on that. The other thing I wanted to throw out as a caution on the attribution-based selling is already hotel product is way too complicated for what it is.
Right.
And it's poorly displayed to the consumer because we always forget not all consumers, most consumers don't travel as much as all of us do. Right. And I'll give you a perfect example of it. And I don't want to pick on Synixis, Sabre, because actually overall they've been a really good architecture through their time. But they offer to hotels the ability to lead off with rate plan versus room type in the consumer journey, which is asinine because consumers don't know what rate plans are. The average traveler doesn't know what a rate plan is. And oh, by the way, there's nothing more frustrating than picking a rate plan and then finding out there's no attributed room categories available to that rate plan. And that's a huge flaw in going overcomplicated. Is in a lot of cases you're going to run into these kind of these friction points for the consumer if we overcomplicate the product and the positioning of the product. So this is where I will, even though I said Tim's wrong, I will actually say that selling after the initial sale is more consumer friendly and actually removes some of the friction of the first decision.
It depends what it is, though, right? It depends what it is you're selling. Yeah. Like, for example, we've done a lot of testing on our booking engine because there's a step you can include between the selecting a room and rate plan and checking out, and that is an additional service module. You don't have to have it; it's an option. But things like add-on breakfast when we're dealing with a family vacation travel at that point, so it's all taken care of. That has a positive impact on conversion rate and revenue, right? So I think it depends on what attribute you're adding, and not obviously not giving too much choice. So there's a paradox. It just creates this like just complete freezing of decision making, but. Depending on the attribute, I think you can sell it before, but the majority of things I think should be sold afterwards.
Well, I do think that freezing, honestly, is a big problem right now because, I mean, if you've ever been to our friends at Applebee's, you know that it's a little difficult to choose anything to eat. And I just recently went to a Italian restaurant, affectionately called Balls. And they actually would allow you to choose any base and then any, sauce and then like 6 different types of meatballs. And whenever I get into those scenarios, it's almost like there's too many good options and it is sort of paralyzing. Like we need to provide options, but a limited number of really targeted options, I think, in order for any of this to make any sense. And
a really good user experience, like a really well-designed serving of it, which is why, that's my big caveat for all of this. And I got to tell you, Amadeus, they've built some great core infrastructure. Their consumer-facing stuff is in line with everyone else in the hotel industry, which is, piss poor. Compared to many other industries that design user experiences.
I would actually argue their UI is worse than a lot of folks. It's archaic, especially on mobile.
Yeah.
I was being nice.
Think also, we need to come back to the conversation about, I don't see early check-in or late checkout as an attribute. I see it as, we're looking at selling now rooms by hour increments, not by night increments.
Funny how we got back to that.
Yeah, I mean, really. But really, if you can book a room from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., that should be a different rate than if you book a room from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. the following day. And
sure.
that's
the rental car companies do it.
Right. Are currently, and I wouldn't even do it by the rental car companies. I would do it as an hourly increment. I think that's where we need to go in revenue management, where there is actually a multiplier. Whether or not it's published as an hourly rate or not is immaterial. It's really a matter of, you select your check-in time, you select your check-out time, and you can say this, and then maybe you have sort of a run-of-house check-in time that's based on the typical. If you're not sure what time you're going to arrive, then you leave it to chance a little bit.
There are a lot of housekeeping folks or operations folks that have to deal with housekeeping that are having heart attacks right now when you say
Absolutely.
that. Because the logistics of that, mind-boggling.
But the logistics would be helpful, actually, because right now you don't know.
Because you know when the guests are going to arrive.
Randomly show up early.
Right.
So you're scheduling, instead of scheduling all your housekeepers. No, I don't think you do, because instead of scheduling all your housekeepers from 7 a.m. until 3 p.m. like we do right now, and maybe 1 p.m. person, you would actually run an arrivals and departures list that is more intuitive.
But you've got to limit where the overlap is, right? Because if you get too many people want late checkout and early check-in, then it's physically
Lily just dropped the mic and said, "The hell with you."
Nice, Mike.
Lily's like, forget you, Stuart. Nothing you say matters.
Well, I mean, there's already a shortage of staff on the housekeeping side. It's already hard enough to turn over when everyone checks out by 11 and no one checks in until 3 or 4, right? That's already a nightmare.
I think your point is if we could do staggered, if you could do more staggered based on the data that you have.
As long as
even
no one wants it.
Hold on. Let's actually finish what she was saying. Stephanie,
if you actually placed people in rooms by their check-in, check-out times, you would allow the housekeeping staff to move as like a sweeping motion throughout. That would actually create a lot of
as long as they're not too close together, right? Because now the PMSs aren't built to deal with that. There's already a daily shuffle that has to happen of who's checking in and checking out. Overnight. Now you're doing it by the hour. There's not a system in the planet that would allow you to do that seamlessly.
Well, there are programs out there like B-Wake that do sell. You dump your inventory, your half-day inventory for those airline travelers and things like that. There are systems out there that but
it's a minority, right? It's a hand. But then you get that room's completely unoccupied except for those minority of people that come through that one channel. When you're talking about like a 5,000 unit property and you're dealing with the logistics of that, the air traffic control alone would be insane. There's not a system out there to track it.
Right.
There's not a system out there that allows for you to book a room with a certain arrival and departure time either. Correct. I mean, I think the whole problem right now is technology. That's why it can't be done with our existing PMS technology and our existing CRS technology. But theoretically, if somebody were to build a system to allow for this, then they would have the analytics and the reporting to do it. I mean, we can't assume that we're going to use the same reporting with a brand new system that we always have.
Right.
If we can build a BI tool, if OTA Insight can build this revenue insight tool that plugs in and tells me my entire pace by every metric possible with no need to look at history, I think that capability is out there. It's just a matter of reimagining the reports and doing things in a new way that we haven't done before.
And building a new property management system.
You need a new property management system, and you have to be very careful how you design your room categories, because otherwise you get into a situation where, yes, it's attribute-based selling. You've now broken down much more finite groups, right? You're saying it's the high floor, partial ocean view king, or something like that. And you may only have a few of those rooms, right? You have 5 or 10 because you're trying to really optimize everything. But then all of a sudden, your whole inventory management approach better be a damn good Tetris player, right?
Yeah.
You got to go find some guys who were absolute world class with Tetris, because you're going to kill yourself, because you need that continuity of that room available. If it's a 7-night stay, that particular unit has to be available all 7 nights, right?
Only if you continue
software to do that.
No, so nobody has it yet, right? Because that's only true if you continue to sell by room type. Now, if you do a filter,
it's worse if you do it by unit.
No, it's great because you don't list the units. You just say, what kind of room do you want? You filter down by the attributes you want, and then it offers you up a couple of suggestions that meet your criteria. So have
you operated a hotel like this before in real life?
No, because the technology doesn't exist for it.
Okay.
No, I take that back. I have done that. I have. Okay. We have an 8-room property in Mexico right now, and every individual room is a room type.
Right. Absolutely. And so
when I was at Leading, this was a thing we dealt with all the time from that perspective. In my Leading experience, we had 450 properties. We had 8 unit, safari camps where every single campsite was a different room type because they were all configured. No, seriously.
Right.
I'm laughing at the comments in the comment section. I'm sorry.
I haven't seen the comments. But your safari camps have normally consistent arrival departure patterns, right? Normally, some of them go anytime you want to come in, but they wind up structuring that because they have huge problems. If you have a 4-day safari come into a 3-day, or they'll break it down with 2 different safaris per week or whatever, short or long. All-inclusive resorts used to do that a lot, but if you wind up doing that, if you have a 2-day stay, a 2-day gap, and then a 3-day stay, you've got to find a 2-day stay to fit into that room.
Oh, absolutely.
And I worked with Hotel Seiyoginza in Tokyo. I used to handle their marketing. 80-room ultra luxury 6-star property. 80 rooms, 45 room types. It's one of the most inefficiently, and they were doing it for all the right reasons. They
did it to take care of the guests.
These unbelievable level of detail, and they killed themselves because they didn't have control over the customer demand. Right?
And because they didn't use AI.
No, AI has nothing to do
with it. They used a form of AI. It was actual intelligence.
It was real. It was human intelligence. Right.
But if you've got to narrow down, like if we're in this theory where every room is its own unit, right? Let's say we're talking about a 250-room hotel, kind of the average mid-size full-service hotel, then AI can help determine which rooms to offer up based on probabilities of whether or not you're going to be able to fill this hole and really position the guests where you want them. Because theoretically, unless you're almost sold out, there's going to be multiple rooms that are going to meet the guest criteria, and you don't want a list of 50 rooms.
Once you're over 90%, having been a rooms division manager in Yellowstone National Park, which was 600 rooms with a 1.08 day length of stay, not good. You wind up.
But you can fill out your holes.
Yes, in that case, we could fill the holes.
Robert's always been able to. With pizza.
That's right. But the problem is this is an operational nightmare from a strategic perspective for the hotels, and AI doesn't fix it, because what happens is the AI is looking at all the patterns and what's happening. They go, we've got a hole. We now have to lower the pricing to fill this, right? Because we need to find someone to come in here, and you start artificially doing things, and it's not going to be accretive to profitability.
To be fair, she said theoretically, and it would be great if you could head in this direction, but a lot of things would need to change.
Of course. Of course.
I mean, so
and I'm not talking pricing either. I'm talking room assignment. If you want to start
today down that path, the first thing you'll have to do is make sure that all of your data is in excellent shape and is kept really well, because without
that problem's already solved.
Right.
That's why all of my
none of this is possible.
Yeah, that's always my first step whenever people say, how do we go into total revenue management? How do we do this? And I'm like, first, you create a data cleanliness program, because I guarantee you your data is not clean today. And that is an excellent point. I mean, we really, if we want the industry to advance, we have to take care of some of these basics, because it's like building the foundation, right? Like if you don't have a good foundation, you're going to have a crappy building, and it's no different in scenarios like this. But I do think, Robert, that your concerns about this are, in my mind, predicated on doing things in a way that we're doing them now. So you've got to kind of take that out of the equation to some degree, because if the technology existed, then I think that we have enough great minds out there in development of technology that if somebody wanted to make the investment, it could be done. The real question is, who wants to make that investment?
Well, no, you have a rules-based. All you do is you develop a rules-based PMS, right? And you can do that, and that's fine, because you don't need. And for decades, there are logical room configurations and inventory structures versus physical ones, right? So yeah, you can do all of that. I equate this to the hotel industry is out there going, leopard kittens are so cute. Let's bring one home. Right? There are going to be a lot of issues.
Not going to disagree.
Yeah, of course.
This is not going to be they are.
Okay, but just think back many years, because this is the exact type of thing.
I was there.
Robert's
this is the exact type of thing that I heard when we said you cannot have a rate sheet at the front desk for the year that you hand out to your guests. You need to flex your pricing by day of week and demand. And people were freaked out by that and talked about all the challenges that there were going to be.
Right.
Well, that was
Stephanie, you've been trying to get a word in edgewise. Hold on a second. Stephanie, you've been trying to get a word in edgewise. Hey, Robert, stop being aggressive. Stephanie, you've been trying to get a word in edgewise.
I just want to throw it out there as a question if you think about just as comparison to the airline industry, and you have your Spirits and Frontiers of the world that have positioned themselves as the cheap provider that can, get this base thing. Like if you translate that into the hotel space, is there an opportunity to look at those more basic systems, or even within a brand or a portfolio of IHG or Hilton hotels, to say, we're going to not have attributes, or we're going to have a baseline room so that, positioning standpoint, there's no decisions, just the cheapest room, and here's a room, and
So I have two answers for this. The first answer is absolutely. I mean, if you look at Motel 6 and Super 8, that's how they started, right? Super 8 was $8.88 every single night, every day of the week. That was the way it started. You could absolutely do this again, and I think there are opportunities for people to own that base service, and I think you're seeing that to some degree with folks like Pod Hotel or the like. Again, I think they're still pricing a little more variable, but the idea is very simple, is very similar in terms of simplifying the product offering, simplifying the pricing, making it more straightforward. I'm going to be a little snarky for 1 second, but that's just because I tend to roll that way sometimes.
That's the best kind.
I would not necessarily in the hospitality industry say we want to do anything that mirrors Spirit or Frontier, because but in terms of, yes, can you offer a basic product at a basic at a basic price? Yeah, I think there's a lot of room for that in the marketplace.
Because that's what Drew was supposed to be for Hilton. They were supposed to be, from a development standpoint, a low cost per key. But even with the ones I've worked with, they've taken on, because you can't keep your development costs in line, therefore you have to be more aggressive on the rate. And that wasn't supposed to be the price point and deliverable model in terms of basic hotel, lack of amenities and things like that on a larger scale.
By the way, since we were talking about them before, I did look. Wingate Inns, and I'm bringing them back into the conversation for a specific reason. They have 170 properties. I looked, and that actually has been, been their model for years and years and years. Is everything's included. It's designed for a business traveler. It's designed to be easy, right? And they actually do tend to follow that model still pretty closely. It's a simple product, and they don't have a lot of add-ons, and they're priced by market, obviously, but it's a pretty straightforward product. By the way,
quick, everyone, pick a topic.
I also did look since I was fact checking myself. Wyndham's pipeline of 1,450 hotels and 190,000 rooms. They said 74% of that is new construction. So I was way off in my numbers in terms of way off in terms of new construction.
Since you fact check a core too. That was the other one I didn't. That should be.
Oh yeah, you'd think you'd see a core in there for sure.
Kind of big.
Yeah. Excuse me. But since I was fact checking, I wanted to be clear on that. And Robert, I don't know if you heard, but Wyndham says that their development pipeline, 74% is new construction.
Wow.
Yeah. It surprised me. Historically, they've done a lot of conversions. Historically, a lot of their properties.
Well, and they've got Oyo. Oyo's pulling a lot of those conversions out and others. We'll see how long that lasts.
Well, let's be fair. Let's be fair about that. The product that Oyo is converting these days, Wyndham hasn't been touching in large numbers for years.
That's true. Knights Inn is now Red Lion's. Knights Inn's Red Lion's problem, and
we saw how well that worked out for Red Lion.
Yeah, the new CEO of Red Lion will have to figure that out.
Yeah.
Okay. We seem to have petered off on this topic. Do we want to pick another one to just try and squeeze another one in?
Yep.
All right. So, Stuart, we stepped all over you.
Over
so, barring Baby Yoda, what else would you like to talk about?
That's a spoiler, by the way.
Dude, I haven't watched it yet. Come on, man.
Watched what?
Cool. Exactly.
What am I even talking about?
Yeah, unfortunately, I know what you're talking about because the internet sucks.
I'd like to talk about the Google local algorithm update. It's getting a little nerdy, but I think there's a lesson here that repeats itself every single time any update ever happens to Google, where everyone freaks out, knee-jerk reaction, tries to change a bunch of stuff to game the system, then realizes, oh shit, that didn't work. It actually hurt me. I should have stuck with my original strategy. But basically, Google's come out with another kind of big shakeup to their local algorithm, and a lot of folks across different industries are seeing a big drop in their ranking. And I think we could debate whether ranking is something you should even be focused on right now. But the nuts of it are that it looks like what Google's doing is paying even more attention to your vicinity to the local business in terms of deciding what it's going to serve you. So if I'm in Austin, Texas, then it's literally going to look at where I am in Austin, Texas. And if I search for hotels in Austin, the ones that are in my real nearby vicinity are the ones that are more likely to show up, right? Which is great for a consumer. That's the exact right thing that it should be doing from a consumer perspective. But now people are doing what they always do and having hissy fits about it, which is funny to me.
Well, actually, if we can say one thing about this that has been a mantra of mine for a long time, is we discovered, so we did a bunch of usability research in my Wyndham days, where, especially for economy and mid-scale product, we didn't talk about location, we didn't talk about distance, we talked about proximity, right? People really tend to care. They don't just want you to be somewhere in the vicinity of, they want you to be right next door. They want you to be right across the street from. My favorite thing I ever saw, it was one guy who we saw in a usability lab. But he said out loud what we witnessed with literally like 20 other people, like 20 people in a row, right? But this guy said it out loud. He was looking at Hotel Circle in San Diego, right? And there was a property at one end of Hotel Circle, and there was a property at the other end of Hotel Circle. And the difference in rate was like $5 or $10. And by the way, these were rates that were like $79 a night, just to put this in context, right? So it was $79 a night, $69 a night at opposite ends of Hotel Circle. And he looked at the first property. It's like, I don't know, that's a little expensive. The one that was at the one end of Hotel Circle. He's like, it's a little expensive, but it's not, it's okay. But I really like where it is, right? Then he looked at the one at the other end of Hotel Circle that was $69, and he said, oh, that price is great, but man, it's in the middle of nowhere. For $10, I think I'd rather be where everything is. We're talking a mile apart, if that. And it was the middle of nowhere to this guy.
Convenience is the thing.
I'm sorry?
Whether it's proximity or anything else.
That's right.
What people are buying today is convenience. And that ties back into so many other things we've already talked about with attribute-based selling and stuff like that. Not having too many offers is not convenient.
Right.
So you have to make the whole experience convenient.
Well, my term for this that I've used for a long time are P's and Q's. People care about 4 things in hotels, which is price, proximity, qualities, which is how I sum up a lot of the amenities and things like that, and quality. Right? It's and if you got those 4 things, and if you think about it like a Venn diagram, different people are going to prioritize different ones of those based on the nature of their trip. But they're making a decision based on those 4 attributes, those 4 components. I won't use the word attributes in this case.
And what's interesting is with like ride sharing and things like that. Now, I wonder if the circles have changed. So
they probably they have for those guests who care about that, but for other guests,
but it actually could be challenging, because if you think about it, if you were just on the edge of what would be considered walking distance to something, is that actually worse now because you can't grab easily a lot of ride sharing that short of a distance? So is the ring now darker further out, and actually gets this like light mark where people know that they're just going to have a hard time getting a ride, but it's really kind of too far to walk, and then it goes back to location. It'll be interesting to see the impact of those types of things on the overall how someone looks at proximity.
Yeah, we found.
I think.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, that's what Google's trying to figure out, is they're trying to serve it up to you on a silver platter so that you don't have to do so much legwork. I mean, that's the whole thing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I was just going to say,
but dang it, I'm outside the circle. How do I manipulate?
How do I get in the circle?
But for a lot of economy lodging, like if you look at a Toronto or something like that, where they can't afford to stay downtown, all of a sudden, yes, you've got a lake on one side, so it's a little bit easier, right? You've got this kind of 180-degree spectrum, and people will wind up, they want to stay on the west side, but it isn't available or whatever. They'll stay 30 miles away on the east side of the city, and it's the same thing, right? Because you have
they will if the other factors outweigh them.
Right. It depends on the factors.
It depends on the traveler, and it depends on the trip.
I mean, but if they can't afford a hotel,
and things like that.
Well, that's the qualities that I was talking about before.
Right. Yeah, but the interesting thing on the proximity is, yes, they want to be in Toronto, but they need to be accessible to some sort of transportation. And then maybe it is ride sharing, or it's a subway stop or something like that, where they can get to where they want to be. Which again, we've talked a lot on the show about these demand drivers, being sporting events or concerts or all the things that attract. Those are all different dimensions, these little subsegments, which really are important over particular weekends or weeks or whatever to fill all your.
I'll give you a real world scenario. I went to a concert a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to do the focus group of one, but only to illustrate the point.
Because we recommend that.
Correct.
Tim,
correct. But
for all focus groups, if you just ask Tim, you get the answers you need.
Tim is statistically valid on his own.
Exactly.
Well, you're not wrong, Stuart. That's true. In this specific case, no. But I'm more for illustration purposes. This is not representative of everybody. This is representative of a traveler on a trip, right? We went to a concert a couple of weeks ago at Mohegan Sun, which is it's the casino up in Northeast Connecticut. For people who don't know that geography, it is the middle of nowhere. It's out in the woods. But we were going to see a concert up there.
Who were you seeing, Tim?
We were seeing Sarah Bareilles, as a matter of fact.
And I missed her last week. She came through Texas too, and $20 tickets.
Put on a damn
$20
show.
Tickets.
That's a great deal.
She's great. That is an amazing deal, and I couldn't make it.
So Mohegan Sun has got the most interesting rev management I've ever seen in my life. Because on any given Saturday night, Mohegan Sun probably goes for $179 a night. I'm picking a number that I think is correct. And when they have specific events going on, the prices go up, fivefold, sixfold. Yeah. And it really just varies based on what's going on at their arena and things along those lines, how different the prices are. And so the tickets at Mohegan Sun for one night were $690. No, I like Sarah Bareilles. I was looking forward to the show.
But it's not a $690 a night hotel by any stretch of the means.
It certainly isn't in my mind when they would have charged me $179 if I stayed over on Friday night instead, right? They definitely create some value perception problems from that perspective. Yeah. But there was a hotel just down the road a piece that has a shuttle that runs between the casino and the hotel on a 20-minute turnaround and was, $280 or something along those lines. Right. Now, if that hotel didn't exist, I'm probably booking the room at Mohegan Sun because there was nothing else convenient. I'm not driving after the concert and going to the casino for a little bit after the show back to a hotel at, midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning or things along those lines. So at that point, proximity was less important because I had the ability to get from where I was to where I wanted to be, timely, easily, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's kind of the point, is not that this is the focus group that matters, but that each traveler for each trip is going to make a decision that say, which of those components matter for this trip, and how am I valuing those to say this is a good price or this is a terrible price. This is a place I will stay, or this is a place I won't stay.
And we're back to trip personas. Yeah. Back to trip personas. How do we get around that?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yep.
If, for example, Ed would never have roughed it on a public transportation with the ruffians, the peasants, right? He would have gladly paid the extra $300 a night to avoid that.
Well, wait. Did they have a helicopter?
Did they have a helipad? I have a story that I told for weeks on this show back in the early days. Same exact situation, different casino. It's Hard Rock in Tampa, who has a concert venue right across I-4 from them.
Yeah.
And they were over $1,000 a night to stay at the Hard Rock in Tampa. And I'm sorry, there is no version of anything that would make me pay $1,000 a night for the Hard Rock in Tampa. So I went searching and just prayed on a revenue manager who was asleep at the wheel, and I got to stay at a beautiful La Meridian for $149.
Oh, that hurts.
On a night when the Aloft was $218. I actually was worried, wow, is this La Meridian broken or something? And it was the most beautiful hotel, to the point where I emailed the director of sales and was like, listen, man, you had Tampa Comic-Con going on. You had, and actually it was Counting Crows and
is that where you got the side guitar?
The lead singer? No, I got this from my wife years ago, but it was Counting Crows and Rob Thomas in concert, and that's what we were going to see. And
was it Q1?
What's that?
Was it in Q1?
I don't know. Why were you the revenue manager over that?
No, I think it's really funny because in all the years that I've been doing this, still to this day, I guarantee you that there is a huge percentage of hotels out there right now who have not set their 2020 rates yet. Because they look at it as a calendar year. So that can really lead to some of those. So that made me wonder if you booked it in Q3 or Q4 for
it would have been Q2 actually. It would have been Q2. But I mean, here's the thing: the Aloft right down the street was way more expensive for an Aloft, and so I was saying to my wife, I'm like, we may get there and be surprised, but La Meridian brand standard is really solid, so we're going to try this. And it was amazing. It's an old courthouse. It was a federal courthout that got turned into a La Meridian, and each room was a judge's quarters. They left it as a courthouse.
Oh, that's cool.
That's super neat. Yeah. But had they run a shuttle, they probably could have gotten $500 on a package, do dinner, because their restaurant was amazing, do dinner and a shuttle to the concert. And they could have sold out at $500, a person or a couple.
And you still would have been making money compared to what you would have paid for the Hard Rock.
Oh, and the current tip on that is just to include an Uber gift card, because if you don't already have a shuttle, then the licensing and the insurance and all of that.
They did have a shuttle. That's why I was. That's why. I had otherwise they actually had a shuttle. We took the shuttle, but we took the shuttle. Because it was right at the edge of how far it would go. So,
just talking off this random point. Yeah.
It's interesting. The AC hotel at LAX, didn't have a shuttle. They provided Uber. Basically, they called Uber and billed it to the hotel. So they just, come, which is going to be very interesting because LAX has now kind of outlawed Ubers dropping at the picking up and dropping off at the terminals. Right, you have to now go off site, which is a big problem with LAX. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't know how many other airport properties will go, hey, we can save on the fuel, on the equipment, on the staffing, and just do interesting possibility. So, but then again, they also don't have the checkbox though of having airport shuttle on Expedia or whatever, because they don't. Sure. Do they or don't they? Right? You get into some pretty interesting.
I think it's a good. I have a lot of airport hotels though that just keep those little. You can just buy the little like $10 credit. So from a service recovery standpoint, when your shuttle gets stuck in traffic, you're like, here, just use this credit and go type thing.
Yeah, these guys, they had no equipment. They did not have a shuttle at all, right? It was just, this is how they did it. And
so we're now heading towards the time where normally Tim Peter is going to tell us and remind us that he has customers. So do we want to move to the Rut-Row? The Rut-Row and Rut-Row A, which seem to be in disagreement with each other. What do we think?
Yeah, and I'm just going to jump in and start the conversation here by saying that this is a great example of you can make your data say whatever you want your data to say.
So we should tell people what the Rut-Row and the Rut-Row B are.
Yeah, well, the Rut-Row. Yeah, the Rut-Row is titled by Boarding Area, which is a blog that focuses on frequent travelers and things like that. And then another one, 1 Mile at a Time, similar blog. So the first one was Bonvoy, SPG members leaving Marriott, data suggests. And then the second one was survey, people overwhelmingly prefer Marriott Bonvoy, ? So these are and you have to understand the Rut-Rows are not always apparently who's it a Rut-Row for, but for this, these are a couple disgruntled former SPG members who are still griping at Marriott acquired Starwood.
And that's kind of my point. Lily, you're absolutely right that you can make the numbers say whatever you want, but there's also a law of large numbers problem here. So, as a guy who worked at the world's largest hotel company by one measure, I once did something. No. I'm telling a very specific story. We once made a change to the website. I ran e-commerce. I ran digital for the company. We made a change to the website that pissed off a very small portion of our hotels, a very small portion of our franchisees. We pissed off somewhere between 5 and 10%. At the time, we had 7,000 franchisees. So I had about 700 angry franchisees to deal with, which at the time, those 700 angry franchisees would have been roughly the third or fourth largest hotel company all by themselves. When you're a big company and you've got a lot of scale to deal with, Marriott could be doing it right for 99% of their members and have 1 million pissed off members, right? So I mean, I think from everything I've seen, Bonvoy seems to be doing okay-ish, maybe, but I think we're going to still need to see. But they probably did piss off a lot of people who were in Starwood Elite and things like that, and they probably did it on purpose because it's going to cost them a lot of money,
As someone who has seen guest feedback at scale for some of these brands, your elite members are the absolute worst people in the world anyway. And they're so easily offended. Like the guest feedback from and I won't say the status because I don't want to give away the brand, but the guest feedback that comes from the top status of one of these major brands always reads exactly the same, which starts with, "Do you know who I am?"
Yep.
And you must not
really
understand.
feel bad when I send that email. I have to admit.
Right. It's actually a huge problem because you set such unrealistic expectations of entitlement for these people. And a lot of these people are road warriors. So if you actually think about it, it's kind of a double-edged problem. So road warriors generally are not senior managers in their organization. So they're generally people who are probably kind of crapped on in the corporate hierarchy. So then you give them this very strong sense of entitlement. during a time that they're probably being crapped on. That's why they're on that trip. And so any friction, like, oh, my bottle of water had a dent in the side of it, my plastic bottle of water had a dent in the side of it. I have never been so offended as an elite member of this, and I will never. And they always wrap with the same. So it always starts with, do you know who I am? And it always wraps with, and I will never stay
with you again.
Wait, Ed, so all the elite members are millennials? You said they're entitled.
Actually, you'd be amazed at how many boomers can wear those entitled pants very easily.
And you make my point for me.
That is not a generational issue, I don't think.
It gets blamed on millennials all the time.
Sure does.
Yeah, I think it's really very interesting. And I think that whenever we're looking at something like this, of course, Marriott has a vested interest in making us believe that Bonvoy is really well loved, right? But you always have to look at these things in a multitude of ways. And so if you go back a couple of weeks, we talked about the earnings reports from both Marriott and Hilton and what's happening for them with ADR and things like that. And if I recall correctly, Marriott was definitely looking stronger than Hilton, and I thought it was interesting that they were using Hilton as, everybody's fleeing to Hilton's program in one of these two articles. But the data doesn't necessarily suggest that when you look at the earnings. Granted, that's all earnings and not loyalty, but I think that we are hard-pressed to say that, it's so much of a problem in Bonvoy that non-loyalty members are somehow saving Marriott.
Well,
on the
Marriott's third quarter earnings, though, were not good, and Arnie had to kind of use the Hong Kong disruption as a crutch, which didn't actually impact Hilton at all, which is a little odd.
China's exactly where I was going to go next, too, because it also said that 40% of the new signups are from China. Marriott has a new deal with Alibaba. And so maybe 20% of the Bonvoy customers left, but it's being sort of covered up by all of these new entrants from into Bonvoy. And so looking at things as an aggregate positions at the way that they want to, because if Marriott can make everybody believe that Bonvoy is well loved, people will believe it and they will sign up. That's just the way that perception works. It's totally a PR.
They're going to wish it into reality.
Exactly.
The positive spin of, we have 20% more redemption of room use.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Look at all these people earning and using, or they're cashing out so they can move.
Exactly. Right.
And
so you can make the data. You can make the data say whatever you want it to say from a PR standpoint. As a parallel, though, I see a lot of hoteliers who make data say whatever they want it to say to their owners, and that's totally fine, I suppose, if that's the way that you want to go. But I sure hope you're not basing strategy on a false interpretation of data.
The same can be said for vendors providing data.
I was just going to go there.
Attribution theft.
Yeah. Well, and actually the thing with we had the other thing about Accor has a deal with Alibaba, and I believe IHG may have been the first one. They're all doing deals with Alibaba because it's all Fliggy, right? And it's a mobile app, and that's how you get into it. And it's basically you get a store, right? It's like having a store on Amazon or anything else, except it has more favorable economics. That's the bottom line. They're seeking, distribution with more favorable economics.
But you can't put it that way, Robert, because right now, Marriott and Accor have both benefited by, look at how smart we are. We made a deal with Alibaba, which sounds like this was something that didn't exist before, let alone not something that you literally can just go and register for and fulfill pretty much the same exact terms of the deal on.
I'm pretty sure, and this is a great deal for Alibaba. Now, also interestingly, Chinese outbound traffic is way down. Right, that's dropped rather precipitously, and that's not good. And the U.S.-China trade war is one of the factors there where they're going. Wait a second, which again, from a U.S. foreign policy perspective, is just ridiculous because if you're looking at trade imbalances, boy, you want
I'm just sending an email to somebody saying why I'm late for my call.
Now, wait. Okay, I want to say one thing about we are very glad to have Lily and Stephanie here because Tim, if it was just like Ed, Stewart, and I, he would have been gone 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm wondering why I'm not gone now. But
oh, by the way, Tim, thank you for listening to my sales pitch on the New Jersey vote against Airbnb and then going and making it
and I'm
happen.
the one who pushed it. I was the one who pushed it over the top. That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Every vote counts.
Every vote counts.
Every vote counts.
Well, nonetheless, so it is the top of the hour. It's actually just a little past the top of the
Lauren,
hour.
Lauren, are you still there? Is Lauren still there? Chat to us, Lauren.
Well, once Tim, if people want to find you or 85% of the contents of the internet, where should they go?
They should go to flip.to. That's flip.to for no, you can find me at timpeter.com. It's not 85%. It can't be more than 84. Oh, by the way, I did look. 1,150 properties in the pipeline for a core. I couldn't find a number on new construction. So, nonetheless. But I can be found at timpeter.com. I'm TC Peter on Twitter and all that good stuff. So.
Well, Tim,
thanks
for joining us today.
Lovely
thanks
seeing
for
you all.
going
Stephanie,
five over your normal time.
Pleasure meeting you on the show. Look forward to the ongoing discussions. And if I can offer some unsolicited advice for next week, work on sharpening up your elbows so you can just elbow in. Exactly. There you go. There you go.
And by the way, you get designated devil's advocate next week, so we rotate. So
we do
have to argue the opposite point to everyone else just to make it more interesting.
Exactly. All right, you guys have a great weekend. Look forward to seeing you all next week, and sell lots of hotel rooms. All right, see you soon.
See you, Jim.
See ya.
That is a conference thing I would really like to do is to have two people. You have the topics, so they know the topics, but they draw out of a hat, and one person has to be pro, one person has to be con. They go at it for whatever, 5 minutes each or 10 minutes, whatever it is, and then they switch.
Well, what an amazing idea, Robert. Wait, Stuart.
Go for it.
Robert, that is the most original idea I've ever heard you have. All right, go ahead, Stuart.
All right, so Ed and I were scheduled to do that exact thing at a conference next week that actually, unfortunately, just got postponed till May. But that's the exact format we're doing. We don't know what side we're arguing until we're on stage, and we got like 5 different topics to argue.
Yeah.
So.
It's a great training tool too. I mean, it's great for conferences because, frankly, I always prefer a panel that has a difference of opinion, whether genuine or not. Either way, it opens up discussion. But I use that a lot with my revenue consultants when we're trying to present data to an ownership. And I'm like, okay, so that's your stance. Great. Tell me why you are wrong. Come up with all the ways that you could possibly be wrong. And it's a great exercise to help with presentation skills.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, our thought of doing it was it would help the audience, make their own decisions versus just going along with the echo chamber that tends to happen at conferences and a lot of panels these days.
They have to make decisions now?
I know. It's amazing.
You're asking a lot there.
Not without their 7 other people in their organization also being involved in it.
All the sycophants that nod and agree, yeah. Hey, Lauren's back.
And so, Lauren Gray. Hey, did you know we had a web show today, Lauren?
Holy crap. I was in the back baking cookies, having
daylight savings got you, didn't it?
Arguing with Restream because we're going in and out on LinkedIn Live, and I've done all the things they asked me to do on tech, which, by the way, thank you for letting me actually play tech in the background today, because it allowed me during the live broadcast, get Restream in there and go, look at my feed, man. It's dropping off every 9 milliseconds. I've done everything you've asked. What is it? Oh, we need to get this platform that costs $600 a year. And I'm like, no. You said you can do this.
I think you're going to wind up at Zoom at some point. Is my theory.
When are we going to
Webinar Jam? No. It has nothing to do with this.
When are we going to the new platform that was awesome and not this platform?
Yeah.
Well,
it doesn't crash
actually, at the end of the month, but that isn't the problem. Actually, Webinar Jam for the first time is not the issue. It's the simulcasting platform, Restream. This broadcast is fine. And it broadcasts to every platform except for LinkedIn. LinkedIn has a different criteria for their live, which is a 1 millisecond latency factor. All other platforms run on a 9 milliseconds, so I'm finding. So the Restream platform that simulcasts me out is having a problem keeping the consistency of connectivity with LinkedIn. They say they don't, but they're the ones that keep falling off. All the other platforms are fine. So whether we go on the new platform or not, the Restream simulcasting is the problem right now.
I for one, think this is a user error, personally.
Yeah, I'm going to say it is, too.
It's between the keyboard and the floor. I know. It's between the keyboard and the floor. I'm with you.
Here's what really happened while Lauren was not on. He upgraded his mobile phone plan. He called and made some doctor's appointments.
I went on the doctor's
appointment.
He watched The Mandalorian again.
Yeah.
All I know is when I leave, all of a sudden Robert turns into this different person. I mean,
He's quite an animal today.
I'm getting emotionally ready for.
Were you hanging out with Ed for any length of time? Is that what happened?
Yeah,
you got a little Ed rub off or what? I mean,
Ed's going a little soft these days. We got to do something to really, like poke him. Poke the bear.
You got to pick something challenging. These
Talk about UCF
topics.
How trash?
Yeah, that would get fired up. I just
coming from a South Carolina fan
and Lily stepping in and not holding their own, but pushing you all back into the corner, going, "Yeah, we'll prove it."
That's funny.
Yeah, these are all softball topics, Robert. You're not picking like the really dangerous topics anymore. I think you're the one who's solving.
Bring up privacy, data privacy. That'll get it.
The AI one. The AI one was pretty interesting. That VentureBeat article was pretty long.
Oh, the ethics of AI and stuff. Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, it was very good. Yeah, lots of sections on that. That's just a good long read.
So can I add an advice column moment to this for our listeners? Because this topic has repeatedly come up for me with multiple clients over the last 90 days or so.
Before you can wait, you have to name the advice column before you can move forward.
Ask Lily.
Oh gosh.
Lily? Yeah, Lily.
No pressure to be super creative on the spot.
Well, you guys are the marketing people, right? So that's why I'm asking you this.
Yeah.
I'm positing the question. I'm not giving the advice here.
Lily's
lavishes.
No, not it.
No.
Representative Lily is here to represent my clients and several other interested parties. So destination properties specifically that do not have true competitors in their market. So we're talking super nice resorts that are surrounded by Best Westerns, Courtyards, Hampton Inns, whatever, what have you. And markets that maybe aren't considered destination, because if they were, let's be honest, there would be competitors. We're not talking about Scottsdale here. These are places where the property itself kind of creates the destination. So it's a two-part question. Number one, how do you position yourself and how do you select a comp set from a marketing perspective in order to get more national instead of local exposure? Because you don't need local exposure. You need people to come to your destination. And number two is, how do you get that exposure on a national level without having to resort to things like Travelzoo or Groupon as marketing tactics when you aren't able to use destination marketing because your destination isn't marketing because it's really just you, and so they have no interest. Lengthy question.
Now or you want to wait till next week?
I can
Your
start.
call.
So depending on the destination, if airlift plays a role in how people get there, is look at the source markets of the routes that are currently in play, and then use that to create really targeted geo profiles and really target your airlift. If it's a drive market, I mean, actually, you got to look at why people would be driving. Are you a drive market that you're the destination, or are you on the way? And then what behaviorally you're trying to do. From there, I mean, you do not have to be a destination to take part in Brand USA level marketing initiatives and state level marketing initiatives. So, again, depending on where you are, look to see if your state is funding any type of marketing initiative, because actually that's targeted to help you as a destination upon itself more than it would help a major destination inside the state. So I would look at those things.
Well, and what are the?
I would also talk to your guests. Understand the guests that you already have, who they are, why they chose you. What other things they look at. What are the in their minds, your competition. I think that could help you define what the comp set is as well.
Right.
That goes to my 2 definition points. There's what's called symbiotic market competition, where I used to have properties in Key West that were competing with Aspen all the time. And it's not because they have similar products or not, it's because they have similar demographics. The causation of the travel is the variation of choice. So what you're competing with at the decision processes of the discoveries and choice process, not the acquisition of it, but the discovery and the decision processes of it, who you're competing with in that market space is one. And to Stuart's point, your demographic profiling is key and element to that. What are they traveling to you for, and defining those feeder resource markets. And to what Ed said, when it comes to the airlift, it's not going just to the core hub systems where they're flying out of Atlanta and Miami, but rather what the increased inventory lift are from the feeder markets that are driving to those hubs that they're arriving to you from. What is the causation of the airports to increase in lift from those locations, and do they match the demographic profile of your guests that are coming to your market historically? So those are 2 additions to that. And Robert, I'm sorry I stepped over you.
No. And it's the same thing. And a lot of market, I mean, you mentioned Aspen. Aspen has 3 distinct, markets. They've got, the local, or front range people really from Denver. They've got international jet setters from around the world. And then they have kind of in the middle is kind of the US market. And it's not just skiers, right? Because summer's a really different market, but those are very, very different. So in some cases,
and they curated their market inventory too to accommodate that. They don't allow variations from their market segments to vary from the people that are driving there to it. I mean, they don't allow, sorry to say, Best Westerns on the fringe of town. That just doesn't happen. They have their inventory specific to types. So
So it's interesting, but all those, the hotel industry has a lot of complexities with things like that. It isn't everybody knows it isn't just one size fits all, and here's a plan. Although a lot of organizations do that, unfortunately,
right.
I don't think anybody who's on this show does, except for Stuart, of course.
Of course, right?
Yeah,
it's a really interesting problem too, because we will sometimes look at things like on Expedia, for example, which has done a good job of building out internally some analytics that hotels can look at. So if we feel like a hotel may not be picking the same comp set that their customers are picking, because let's be honest, your customers determine your comp set, not you, no matter what you want to believe. So if you look at, they also looked at this or this or this, but it's specific to that location search. So is there a resource that you guys use to get data on, okay, I'm looking at Key West and Aspen, or for example, we had properties in wine country that lost some business when they got a lot of snow, or they got a lot of rain, and Lake Tahoe got a lot of snow. And although we couldn't use data to back it up, we were theorizing that people decided to take a ski vacation instead of a wine vacation that year.
The simplest one and the freest one is Google Trends.
Yeah. Well,
just burrow into that. First, go top end. Put the 2 markets against each other, then start going down the rabbit hole.
It's tough. The granularity is tough on that, though. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I'm not.
You gotta have enough volume.
I'm not saying this is an solution. Starting point. Yeah.
Yeah. You have that. Yeah.
It's just, does this validate my assumption? Yeah. No.
And you don't have sentiment either, because if you look at the Dominican Republic, who has been just ravished in terms of their demand based on 5 deaths or something, 5 traveler deaths, really bad situation. The Google Trends stuff's pretty solid, but it's all negative sentiment.
Well, it's historical. It's not current. Yeah. There's a latency factor.
I would say one oft overlooked opportunity that every hotel, especially if you're a repeat destination, should be using is surveying all their guests every year, sending out like a one-time a year survey that asks those kind of questions.
Yeah,
it's so much insight.
Most of these hotels are wanting to tap into guests that they don't already have, and while other guests may have similar sentiments, if they did, then they might.
Then I have a very strong suggestion for that: is engage your past guests to get them to introduce you to their friends and family who are in similar.
If only there was a product that did that.
I know.
Like flip.
Look, 2 other things to that. One is obviously go to your sentiment and go into lookalike audiences, go into your insights if you have a strong social engagement. But the other is, and I've had good success with this, Google surveys. Build a well-constructed Google survey out there, and you're going to get the sentiment beyond your guest profiles as to the perception of your market. and push that out as well. And that's
pretty cost effective. You can do it pretty inexpensively.
An amazing program. Yeah.
And use Flip too.
And use Flip too. I would agree with that.
I imagine, given the Expedia conferences this week, that we don't have a lot of listeners from Expedia, but I will say that it's a huge data selling opportunity that the OTAs are not taking advantage of, that they could, because obviously they probably have the data on, one user logged on and they searched these 3 destinations.
They don't probably have that data. They absolutely
they have it,
and
it's informing all of their PPC campaigns, all their SEO stuff. Right. They are weaponizing it. Yeah,
that's how they win. Is their massive amount of data. And well stored and well used is definitely what gets them selling during time periods that feels like they're the only ones who can drive demand.
Yeah, the sophistication and the AI driving their PPC campaign is just astounding. I mean, they are
I'm willing to bet you it's not AI though, Robert. I'm willing to bet you it's probably just pretty.
It's good, really good big data. Predictive
analytics,
but they're trying to layer in some AI to learn from the data and to identify those patterns. Right? Mostly for pattern recognition. I think they're using the AI.
I wish someone would work on that for just regular hotels to be able to have.
But so let's imagine
it's tough with the data
leisure, stuff. Right? We're talking leisure travel mostly when we're talking destination markets, right? Maybe some group, but
destination hotels and resorts would disagree with you greatly. I mean, their group business was substantial.
Sure, but I mean, for purposes of like my focus group, and since Tim Peters not here and we can't do a focus group of 1, I'm going to try a focus group of 5 here and just see what comes out of it.
So who's not allowed to talk then? You?
Right, me.
Or is it one of us?
Yeah, she doesn't want your opinion. Your opinion doesn't count.
Okay.
When you guys are picking a leisure destination, you want to go on vacation. I imagine there's more than one place in the world that you would consider. How do you choose your destination?
Who has cheapest flights?
Yeah, I think flights are a factor.
Weather differential is one of the key things for me because I live in a very hot and uncomfortable place most of the time of the year. And then the other parts of the time of the year, it's just really nice here and you don't want to leave. So weather differential is important to me. Family friendly because if I'm traveling on leisure, I'm traveling with my family, which also then leads me to full service resort, meaning, spa, golf, something for the kids, probably something with water. But I do this search 2 to 3 times a year, don't even care where I'm going to go. And every time I'm asking the question.
Search it on Google, family-friendly full-service resorts?
With a average temperature, and I'll actually do average temperature of X in this month.
Yeah.
So in the summer, I'm looking to get something that's at least 10 degrees cooler than Orlando. In the winter, I'm actually looking for where is snow. That's really it, to bring my kids to play in snow.
I think that's interesting, right? That's a really sophisticated search term, and I think that's how people are trending now, right? But not even you. If you look at the trend of what people are searching, 10% of all keywords that are entered into Google have never been searched before. People are getting more granular in how they search, more specific in how they search. So I think it keeps coming back. I keep repeating myself, but talking to the guests you have, because the best next guest typically is very similar in a lot of attributes to the guests you have. So understanding what their thought process is and leveraging that to apply, build out content, build out advertising plans based on what you can learn from your existing guests, I think is always the way to go.
Well, and understanding those personas, if you want to keep it simple, right, is, here are the top 3 reasons people are staying here with these kinds of patterns, and hopefully understanding the profitability associated with those, and maybe the acquisition cost would be helpful.
From a demographic point of view, from the age categorization that Robert and I kind of fall into, it has to be worth the effort, and it has to be some place of interest. It isn't a financial consideration. It isn't necessarily a previous visit consideration, or in some cases, family consideration. It's whether, is it worth the effort for me to go and do this? Is it something I haven't done before or something? But to go back to something else is we're from what we're doing in one of our clients in Vancouver with this video connections to restaurants and trying to get to the Google Zero Click and really improving our localized schema, is we're finding out what we don't know is what we really truly don't know. there are people that travel for reasons we don't even consider. We put ourselves in paradigms, and then paradigms. Sorry, and there's people that travel because of food. There's people that travel because of cultures. There's people that travel because of communities. And I say this because the hotel is located by an LGBT community. It's located by an amazing Korean restaurant area. It's and there's an amazing Korean culture that's there as well. And
that's because Vancouver has the best sushi I've ever had. That's why. Hands down.
So, it's one of those things where now we're finding, because we're becoming the authorities of our localized restaurants, because we've made this effort, we're getting a lot of people that are coming in to the website that are looking for that relationship between those three things. That was a new thing. We didn't consider that in the process. We considered in authenticating our localization of a value proposition for the hotel, rather than the fact that we now are turning into a leader of those initiatives of people's interest. So it is literally what you don't know, you don't know. But that means there's a lot of these variations that you can not plan for, but you certainly optimize, kind of like what we've had earlier discussions where because of attribution strings, you can begin to determine the context of what the attribution string was created for, whether it was an event-driven thing, whether it was just a business swell or whatever. But if you can finite the content out of the page, your organic value contribution, and then separate that to improve conversion, you really can do those things. Because if you look at what's causing that string to be developed, you can isolate out the commonality of that string and highlight it and see if you can amplify that conversion string's value proposition. And that's just being attentive to the process.
Yeah. And being able to work with, if there are some great restaurants who are terrific partners, and who knows, they're bringing in vintners or doing whatever, a guest chef from a different restaurant, from a different, all of a sudden, if you can start working with them and say, hey, we can put them up. We will house them here. Can we do this? Can we do a package where we can promote this to this, and we start doing this for our guests? You can do some fantastic. The one
common thing in market is nobody has all the resources to do all this stuff right all the time. Right. And so even these restaurants who want more business for themselves, they don't have other than their cousin in the back, the back room doing their social sometimes. And you can actually improve their business by being better at their business than they are for themselves. Yep. Not that you're doing their localized promotions, but you're creating a voice for them by your mere association of content associated with them. And that's what we're finding is we're actually able. And
here's the biggest thing about all of this that I hate when I hear a hotel say it, where they don't want to feature the restaurants of the area because they have a restaurant. Unless you're a one night stay, someone's not going to eat at your restaurant every single meal of the entire time that they're there. So stop. Okay.
Yeah. Unless you can identify that market segment.
Right.
People who love eating
the Bubble Boy convention
over and over. Yeah.
Right. So being a hub of your community and exposing what's special about your community will actually open up new markets to you.
For sure.
And also, by the way, shows the personality of your hotel, and it shows that you're not some evil, faceless corporation. Like most hotels have marketed themselves for years.
Yep.
And creates advocacy of that community.
Is that did we actually answer her question?
No.
I don't know.
No, we've gone completely off the rails because she said it was a destination that didn't have anything. So, there are no restaurants around these types of properties because they're a destination in themselves. So, so Lauren, you're wrong. Okay. Robert, you're wrong. I was wrong.
I'll be wrong.
Hey, I just got to mention my travel plan ideas. Whatever Stuart said was good to travel to. That was my goal. Was whatever Stuart said to travel to, I would. So
the impact of Stephanie and Lily being here, Ed has never said he's been wrong. Actually, on the show or off of the show,
in life in general. Someone
take 223 shows to hit that mark.
Oh, yeah. All right, guys, I got to jump off.
Yeah, I do too.
We're actually at the 2-hour mark, which makes Facebook kick us off automatically because they don't go over 2 hours without being,
Neither do our viewers.
Yeah, well, I got to figure out how to slice out the 1 hour show for IGTV. I got to 10-minute slice, and then I got to do an hour slice for reloading up on LinkedIn. With that being said, as a wrap up, we'll go backwards on the things. Since Stephanie, you were last to join, you're first to say where is it and who are you and what is it you do and where can they find you?
Stephanie Sparks Smith on LinkedIn, cogwellmarketing.com for all other things related to digital marketing for branded hotels.
How did it go backwards before? Robert, you were later to the party.
Speaking of backwards, let's go to Robert.
Robert.
Exactly. Robert Cakehole on social media, rockcheetah.com, or next week I will see people at the Focusrite conference.
No.
Actually,
no, live stream.
I did not find enough coin in the sofa.
Live stream is a great thing. There are going to be some good sections. You can. I am hoping they ask some pointed questions to the CEO of OYO and don't go softball. They should not.
They're going to go softball.
I really hope not. So I certainly the questions, what they do is have all the analysts submit questions to who's going to moderate the different panels and discussions. So I loaded up some really good ones for the hotel one, which will be hotel distribution, which we'll see. And I think I think Lorraine will go there. So that's good. Right. So I'm not doing the panel this year.
It's a toss up between Ed and Stuart. Who would like to go?
I will allow Stuart.
Wow. Oh, no, so after you, I insist.
Wow. You're so gallant.
All right. So if you want to learn more about Flip2, you can go to flip.to. You can listen to the Fuel podcast, who kindly speaks about us on pretty much a weekly basis, and we appreciate that. You can find out more about me on social media, Edward St. Ange, and now Stuart.
The man from New Zealand.
We almost got through a whole episode without making fun of my accent. Almost. Fueltravel.com. Fueltravel.com/podcast is where you can get all our content. There's actually a recent episode where Stephanie was a guest. So, and that was a really good episode. We looked at what independent hotels can learn from the brands. It was really good. I think it was episode 124, 3. I don't remember. Yeah, something like that. So go check it out.
Steph, you made it on the show before any of us. Congratulations.
Now, Steph, did you get the complimentary stew brew? Did he send it to you yet for being on the show?
I've got a new batch being made right now. There's none active.
I'm just waiting for you guys to start making fun of my accent, not Stuart's anymore. So you guys are just letting me.
You have to get in on the conversation more for us to pick up on it.
Yeah, you got to come in so we can pick up on it. Yeah. Lily, since you were so kind to be the first to join us, where is it they can find you? What is it that you do?
Lily Mockerman on LinkedIn. I am the CEO of Total Customized Revenue Management, which you can find at tcrmservices.com. And coming soon, you can also find me at thinkupenterprises.com. More to come on that later.
Think Up Enterprises. Ooh, we got to hear more about that.
Taking the Lauren Gray strategy of if you get a longer URL, then you really practice.
Works for me.
That's right.
And speaking of which, Lauren Gray, who is your daddy and what does he do?
Who's my daddy? For this and all previous 222 episodes, you can go to currently still until we change the domain, hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live. Look for show number 223, the link for that. And of course, all previous episodes for well over 5.5 years, although Stuart says I can't have a 1-year birthday, are all located there as well. We have to apologize for Holly. We ran out of time for her joining today. Holly, sorry we couldn't have you join. Too bad. No. We always, by the way, just so you all know, we always give grief to the co-host that doesn't show up, and if you don't show up, we give you grief about you. We'll talk about you.
We'll make up reasons why you aren't here.
Yeah,
everything can be very, understand this show is now so popular that there is a queue for hosts to come.
There's a queue for hosts.
We now officially have more hosts than viewers. It's great.
Wait, Stuart.
We've broken the count.
That has been consistent the entire time.
Well, I was about to say, even when I'm on a show of 1, we have more than the viewers. I mean, what point are you making, Stuart? It's the same number. No.
Number of hosts -1 equals viewers. That is the algorithm.
Now, we do have, just so you all know, at the last Friday of this month, which is the Black Friday, we do have Katya Mohammed from Alhoa. She is the director of education for Alhoa. She's going to be on for the show. She wants to talk about, actually, it's a very strong subject, and it's about hospitality's role in human trafficking is one of her strong points she wants to make about that. They have that's why I'm like, heck yeah, please do. And so she'll be on the show.
Could you possibly schedule that on a less vacation-y time so more viewers will see it? Because that sounds like a pretty important
It's a very important, it is very, and what Alhoa is doing for it.
For those of you who may not have been following, the last few Black Friday shows have been Lauren.
has been made for continuity. That and Christmas Day are wonderful show times.
I'll be here.
But no, I will be happy to bring her back. She picked that date, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I don't know if it's because of her schedule concern or not, but she picked that date. I will be happy to have her come back at any time. Kat is a brilliant, brilliant woman, very talented. She and her partners, but her coworker Steve, manager of education, handle all of our HOA's training programs, and they're very well organized, very diverse, and very well attended and very well represented. So they've done a great success with that. I mean, it's not her only topic, but I'm ensuring that she's on it, and I made sure that anytime she wants to bring that topic to the conversation, she is always more than welcome to bring that conversation into the show. So
and AHOA has a new CEO that was announced.
Announced. Yeah, new CEO that just rolled out
from East Carolina University,
which is impressive. And their new scope of business profile. If you look at their historical mission statements versus their new look and new directions, they are evolving. They are, as they say, into the third generation of their growth. And
education based, right?
Different ways that they're looking at themselves within the organization and not trying to segment themselves as they had so much previously done before. They're looking at a broader scope. So congratulations to them. I was at their HX conference in New York just this week. And the diversity of the content and the quality of the content was solid. I mean, I had the cybersecurity conversation, but I was just a moderator, so don't worry. There was actually good people talking about good stuff. I just got to go. And you say no? I tried to pull the Tim Peter, draw out let them talk good. But anyways, all right, with that, next show 224 this Friday, 11:30 Eastern, 10:30 Central. I hope all of you and any of you that can make it back again. For those who watch this on the other platforms, thank you. I apologize for the interruption between simulcasting, pausing, then re-simulcasting. I changed laptops, so there was a little blip on some of the platforms, but you can catch the entire show at the hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com, and I'll be rebroadcasting it out to the HSMI EU and APAC regions on their scheduled time this week as well. Or next week as well. So with that, thank you, everyone. Thank you very much for the participation. We'll see everyone next week.
Bye, guys.